Good afternoon. My name is Sydney Martin, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about expansionary fiscal policy and whether it is effective or not. To further clarify what this is, the definition, according to balance.com, is that expansionary fiscal policy is when the government uses its budgeting tools to provide customers and businesses with more money. These tools include increasing spending, including transfer payments or tax cuts. It's usually a combination of all three of these, and in the US, Congress generally must approve all of these measures. As far as my presentation goes, I would like to discuss the conflict on whether or not expansionary fiscal policy is effective. In my opinion, I'm going to state that yes, it is. The purpose of expansionary fiscal policy, according to balance.com as well, is that the government wants to reduce unemployment, increase consumer demand, and avoid a recession. And that's kind of what altogether, I'll show you on a graph later, is what it's all about. So if a recession has already occurred, it seeks to end the recession and prevent a depression. So those all sound like things that each American would want, right? So let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons and if they really do outweigh each other. So I want to start with the main con to then further prove my point. And that con being that tax cuts decrease revenue. So I know that, especially in today's politics and economy and everything, we think that tax cuts is such a good thing. Every American wants that, to increase their revenue, but it really does end up actually decreasing the revenue, which creates a budget deficit and is added to the national debt. So I would like to show you or talk about the pros of expansionary fiscal policy and how they do override the con of decreased revenue. So expansionary fiscal policy works fast because it can put money into the hands of our consumers. It can create jobs, it can immediately lower unemployment, and then I think the most important thing that it can do is restore consumer and business confidence by getting rid of those tax cuts and then therefore increasing that revenue. So I would like to show you two different charts that I found on a couple of websites to further explain my point of view. So I'll let you take a look at this one first. It's kind of like a food web, if you will. So this is talking about expansionary fiscal policy. And it is saying, it's splitting it into four different things. So this is saying like a cut into personal income tax rates, a cut in indirect taxes, cut in corporation taxes, and then a cut on tax on interest from saving. So like all the tax cuts that we just talked about as being a con, but eventually all four of these things lead to four positives, which is why I do think that it is effective because it adds to consumer demand. Both of these do, and then it adds to business capital spending and then consumer demand, which is what we need in order to keep the economy revolving and keep people spending money and keep people using this process. The second visual aid I'd like to show you, I'll let you kind of take a look at this. I got this off of study.com, and this is showing like the recessionary gap, which is what I mentioned earlier when you go through a recession. So we have two main things that's the aggregate demand, aggregate supply. So we have a long run and short run, and then this little square right here, that's going to give us like our recessionary gap. So as you can see, you have your aggregate demand, short run, long run, price level, and everything like that, and that's how you're going to get, this is just illustrating like a fiscal policy model in general, like obviously it's not very specific. So as you can see in the first web, they all led to positive outcomes that would better the lives of all Americans. And the second chart clearly shows, and in the expansionary model, that the long-run aggregate demand and the short-run aggregate demand are compared to one another in the recessionary gap. So I hope that I have been informative to you guys on expansionary fiscal policy and how I do think that it is effective in our economy. Although I do see there is always an opposing side and problems that will affect like each family's income differently with those tax cuts and a decrease in revenue. But overall, I do believe that this process and model is highly effective. I want to thank you so much for taking time to watch my video, and I'm looking forward to hearing what your opinions are on whether it is effective or not. So thank you.